Hello humans, that's Champion74 back again with LEGO Transformers Movie Bumblebee. So, taking a look at Bumblebee in his vehicle mode, as you can see he is intended to be his 1977 Camaro version. I will also be showing off the different configurations for his 07/09 configurations for the first movie and Revenge of the Fallen, as well as a different front configuration which allows him to have his chest armor as seen in Dark of the Moon. Taking a look around, I'm extremely happy that I managed to include the doors, which can open and close, although I think you'll have some luck getting a micro figure even in there. Turning around to the back, he does have the rounded rear tail lights, and although there's only one each side instead of the required two, but obviously at this scale, two would be somewhat hard to get in there. He's a very clean vehicle, and I'm quite happy with how he turned out. For comparison, here he is with a minifigure, and here he is with Optimus Prime. As you can see, they don't exactly scale the best. Bumblebee probably scales better in his new Camaro configuration, although Prime is, in truck mode, considerably taller than Bumblebee, though the length is mainly what annoys me. So, as this is intended to be my 07 Bumblebee, I will be mainly showing him off in his 77 Camaro configuration, but as promised, I will be showing his other configurations. So, to start off with the 09 and 06 Camaros, we have different back sections, and we also have a different car hood. These slopes as well as these wedge plates are intended to be yellow, but as with a lot of things so far, I do not currently have those parts in my inventory. We do require a little bit of surgery to use these configurations. The first bit would simply be to remove the front of the car, just as so. Remove these bits here, and we can set those off to the side. Next, we're going to want to remove the rear bumper bits, as so. Probably going to want to keep the arms in their configuration as it makes life easier, and we're going to want to bring in our hood configuration and just tab it in to the studs on the arms as well as the studs on the bracket. Then we'll bring in our bumper sections and just tab them in on the brackets back here. And there we have Bumblebee in his new Camaro configuration. He sits very low to the ground, and I quite like the muscle car stance that I obtained here. He has a bulky back, as all muscle cars should, and rather large wheels. This configuration additionally scales much better with Prime, being a little bit shorter, not to a high degree, but it looks much better. The Dark of the Moon chest retool works the exact same way in terms of adding it to his vehicle mode, and cosmetically he doesn't quite have that many differences, aside from if you come to look underneath the car here, he does have a little bit of a bulkier bumper. So, now that we've shown off everything that Bumblebee's vehicle mode has to offer, it's time to transform. And here we have Bumblebee in his robot mode. And frankly, this is the mode that I think does best out of the two. Ended up somehow managing to get the wheels on the backs of his shoulders, even though they aren't exactly in the right configuration. I also love how I managed to obsess over the detail of the doors actually becoming his wings and looking pretty good as his wings, and I'm very happy that I managed to include that detail, as well as his little winglets in the back, although he does kind of end up having the roof of the car hang off his back. But what's new with a Bumblebee figure? As well as obviously having his legs do the signature Bumblebee bend inwards at the knee. By far, however, my favourite detail is the fact that I managed to get his big blue eyes as a detail on his head sculpt by using these amazing roller skate pieces, which, quite frankly, I love as a piece for adding detail. As promised, here's a look at Bumblebee's alternate configurations in robot mode. It is optional for the new Camaro version to be slightly more accurate and angle these wedges down, which quite frankly I think adds a lot of character to just the way he looks overall. Again, these pieces are intended to be yellow, and it does mess with his look a little bit. The backs of his legs remain mainly the same, aside from obviously just being much more flat and without the spoilers. And as for the new chest for Dark of the Moon, that does require a tiny bit of extra transformation. And I personally think the extra beef this chest configuration gives Bumblebee looks epic, and I'm very happy that I am actually managed to fit it in as a working configuration. Bumblebee looks very good in robot mode, as well as being rather posable for something this small. He has a backwards butterfly joint, over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. His arm can move that far forward and up with a little bit of forcing. He has a tiny bit of an ab crunch, although realistically it's very limited if you put him in the right, if you transform him correct. His hips can kick forward and up that far. He has a tiny bit of ankle tilt, if you can access it, there. If you move these bits out of the way and use them as heel spurs, he has about 70 degrees of bend at the knee, and his head can move side to side as well as rotate. And I suppose if you really want, he can look up like that. For accessories, Bumblebee simply comes with his arm blaster. Plugs into his arm rather simply. All you need to do is rotate the hand inwards and plug the blaster onto his forearm. And as you can see, B can get into some pretty dynamic poses with his weapons. So now for comparison, here is Bumblebee with a minifigure, and as you can see, again, a micro figure would probably scale much better here. And finally, here he is with Optimus Prime, and I think the two scale pretty near perfectly with each other. Once again, I am exceedingly happy with how Bumblebee turned out. I think even though he doesn't scale the best with Optimus in vehicle mode, he does look very good, and one can almost clearly tell that he is intended to be a Camaro. Robot mode, I think he just nails how Bumblebee's intended to look in the movies perfectly. and I intended to do that with all of my movie builds, and will continue doing so. But that's about it for this review, so thanks for watching.